Sabine?
Sabine.
Hello, everybody, and this is Elizabeth Claire Brewington and Elton Brewington.
Hello. Hello.
We are with Brightside Global Trade TV, and we are here with Dr. Sabine.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that if you're watching, and this is going to be really something you need to be watching, that you write comments and tell us what you thought about the video. And we will also be sharing her new book, and we will show you where you can get the book. We're also going to give you 2 tickets to our conference, and so you can actually meet her on Zoom and talk to her then. So, Dr. Sabine, tell us about yourself and tell us about the book.
So I'm a gastroenterologist. I've been doing clinical research on the front line of research for numerous years, almost 2 decades, probably a little bit more, but I don't want to reveal my age too soon. Anyway, so I started off at University of Florida doing clinical research and kind of kept it going because I felt, whatever is in the pharmacies is old news. I always like to be ahead of the curve. Because I always felt that if I'm the patient that develops a disease, I want to know what's new and what's going to cure me or heal me and not what's old and not working, right? And so I always stay in the trenches and of course, clinical trials. Back 25 years ago, we used to do antibiotics for everything. And then we went from antibiotics to biologics for everything and monoclonal antibodies for everything, including COVID. And when the clinical trial business started going into fecal material in a pill, that's when I started asking the question, wait, we're in the poop business and we don't even know what we're doing with, and we don't understand the microbiome. And why? Because I was doing fecal. So my whole path started with C. diff, which is a little bacteria that you get from taking antibiotics. And 25 years ago, I was doing clinical trials on antibiotics for killing this little bacteria because it was secreting toxins to kill the human, right? And so people were dying from C. diff, and we would come in with different antibiotics, vancomycin, fidaxomicin, etc. And when those antibiotics didn't work, I would go to clinical trials. And in the world of clinical trials, I was known as the queen of C. diff. So when C. diff became kind of popular, I was doing all these clinical trials on C. diff. And when C. diff clinical trials, when they weren't working and the patients still came back to me with profuse diarrhea, C. diff, etc., I'd have to do fecal transplant. Something that no GI doctor likes to do because you're playing with poop and you're infusing it into the colon and essentially reestablishing the gut, reestablishing health, right? And so when I started seeing, and like everybody, when we started seeing C. diff is actually improved with fecal transplant, then there was an awakening as maybe we should start doing these fecal pills. And that was the beginning of clinical trials on fecal material in capsules. When that happened, and I started seeing on my desk, Korean company, fecal material in a capsule, and Japanese company, and American company, and I said, wait, we're literally in the poop business and we have no idea. And is the Korean poop the right for an Italian person, right? I mean, we're so different, all of us, and we're so different and unique. Is it the right thing to do? What if it changes the microbiome? What if the microbiome changes, where we're basically all globalized? We're certainly seeing, a movement of globalization, with foods all over the world from America and foods, and everybody's eating the same foods now. And we're seeing with globalization comes globicity. And with globicity, also other diseases are increasing, right? I mean, our Alzheimer's is increasing around the world, Crohn's disease. Who knew that there was ulcerative colitis in China? Colitis, right? So all these things kind of said,
bombarded. We are truly bombarded with all kinds of ailments that I believe come from a backup of poop in our systems that don't allow us to eliminate and allow us to get sicker and sicker and sicker. And I mean, You know, it's just a pile and pile and pile. I mean, it's just incredible. I'm reminded of the story where the little boy, two boys were put together, and one boy was put in a room full of toys, and he became depressed because he didn't know what toy to play with. And the second boy was put in a room full of poop, full of crap, full of nonsense. Yeah. So the psychologist came back and said, well, what do you look at? I mean, the little boy that was upset was, there's so many toys, I don't know what to play with. And the second little boy was, he was like digging through the poop. He said, there gotta be a pony in here somewhere.
He was the architect. I mean, he was like,
yeah.
I never heard that one. Yeah.
That's a kid who's a geologist in the making.
Yeah. Yeah. So the wonder or the philosophy is in the poop. What's in the poop, man? I mean, if somebody did a biological research. Yeah.
About their poop, by the way. I've been a GI doctor for 25 years. That's part of the reason I named the book that way, right? Let's talk SH dot. I named it because I didn't want it to sugarcoat it. I wanted to call it what it is.
Sure.
It also makes people laugh. It almost so makes people smile. You say that word and you're like, damn. It's like saying damn.
Well, I mean, and the problem is, now, if you're not pooping, something's wrong, because you got to eat and you got to eliminate. And, so, I mean, there's a process there. So I think, but I'm excited about this time because we're headed toward a territory where perhaps people are going to there's going to be a huge awakening. Man, I really got to get my system in order. And I think, I'm convinced, I'm of the era that I believe that the body is designed to heal itself. You cut your finger, it heals.
100%.
Yeah,
So we have in our body the mechanism to heal ourselves, right? From stem cells that we're basically utilizing that are from our bodies. CAR T cell therapy, those are your own blood being used to help. Your own stools regenerates the microbiome, right? So I think we're entering an era where it has to be precision medicine. It has to be, we have to fine tune, we have to understand. Listen, I stepped into this not knowing and saying, okay, well, I'm seeing that I'm changing the path of a disease. When I do fecal transplant on a man that had Alzheimer's, and all of a sudden for C. diff, and all of a sudden he remembers his daughter's birthday. That's like seeing a Martian step into your office and basically saying, wow, there's a Martian. I don't need to do a clinical trial to see the Martian.
Nope.
I know there's life on Mars, right? And that, by the way, that's a quote from Dr. Barodi, who started all this. The SH ... business was started by Dr. Barodi in Australia, who basically started the idea of fecal transplant because he used it from a paper from Dr. Einsman, who did it on 2 patients who had C. diff. He took stools and put it in there. He also understands, like we all understand, that in the world of microbes, you need other microbes to kill the microbes. You can't come out with a machete and kill a virus, right? You need another microbe that's stronger, but you got to figure out which microbe is stronger to kill a virus, right? And that's what it's all about. It's all about which microbe in your gut has allowed you to survive from COVID versus somebody who has not, right? Why are you stronger in your gut and why is the other person not, right? Why is a person eating McDonald's and French fries all day and doesn't gain weight, and a person eating a cucumber gains weight, right? These are the mysteries of the microbiome. And so to me, that was fascinating to step into this because it was going into the abyss of not knowing what I was finding. I started off with utilizing a bunch of genetic labs that were already there. And then I was getting different results. And, like that kid that's playing with mud or the earth, I wanted to play. In order to understand how to build a house, you have to start from the foundation. You have to kind of like do it yourself, and you have to make mistakes and find answers. So I'm the kind of person that likes to step into the mud and understand. So I needed to own my own genetic lab. I'm very privileged that my husband allowed me to buy a machine that was not allowed because he lets me do anything I want. But he was not one of those people that said, no, you can't buy a machine to analyze stools. So he actually he's very supportive of my research. You want, as a woman, a man that supports you. And I have to say, I'm very privileged with that, because he's always supported my research, even though how crazy it is. Like, here I am one morning, I'm like, I'm opening a lab that's going to analyze stools. And he said, what?
Okay.
You're in the clinical trial business. I said, yeah, I'm going to do clinical trials to analyze stools, and I'm going to understand, and I'm going to write the dictionary of the disease and bugs. And then COVID hit, and here we are. We figured out like a solution, me and Dr. Barodi, a potential solution. So we created a pharmaceutical product out of it to help with COVID. So, everything happens with research and discovery. When you step in, you find something, and then it leads to something else. But if you stop the research, you don't advance, and will never understand what's going on.
So your book, it talks about fecal transplant, which, I mean, at the end of because, just the subject matter where, the process was able to help someone cure them of Alzheimer's. I mean, I believe that's possible. I believe that once you get your process in order and balanced, then you will come to a state of health that, eyes are wider open, your heart beats faster, and, you can see clearer. And you hear better. And I think that quite frankly, many doctors don't prescribe to that process, that the body can bring itself to a better balance.
And I have actually met people that take pills because they don't want to book. And I'm like, what's wrong? That's the healthiest thing. You don't want to be backed up.
Right.
And some of our people look at us, we're full of energy, and, I would hate to be sluggish and slow and, all that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Because you're happy, your microbiome is healthy. You figured it out, right? So, and that's the bottom line. The bottom line is what is in the microbiome that is allowing you to be happy, and versus another person that's depressed. And yes, of course, this one case is one case. We may not be able to reproduce it, but we have to show. It was actually, I published it, and it was peer reviewed. It did the circle in France. It was translated. Now doctors are looking into it, right? Because it starts with one case. When C. diff was improved in 2 patients, doctors started looking at fecal transplant for C. diff, and that's what started the movement, right? And then that's what started the whole movement of the microbiome, right? The whole idea of bifidobacter and probiotics and all that started from a miracle that we saw of something changing. So that's research for you.
Well, now give us an understanding, and we want to move on. But the balance between probiotics and prebiotics and the fecal implant. I guess there's a comparison, a parallel that way. Is that right?
So a lot of people are pushing prebiotics, probiotics, and definitely there's, some data on it. I think fecal transplant, there's definitely data because we as physicians, do it on the front line, and we're basically writing about it. There's definitely amazing work out there from fecal transplant, from all my biome squad, I like to call them, because, we're a league of doctors that play with poop. So that's, in a way, we're a squad. And we actually involve.
You're licensed to play with poop.
Play with poop, yes. I always kind of joke, and, so I brought in Scott Jackson, who's the head of the NIH at National Institute of Standards. I brought in Howard Young from the NIH to help us in our mission to show the light, to demonstrate as doctors.
Wow.
If Sabine Hazan comes out and speaks about fecal transplant and Alzheimer's, everybody's going to go crazy and say, what is she talking about? She's full of it, right? But actually, I'm not. Because I actually, and that's the reason I called it also. I said, first of all, I'm not full of it because I wrote the book on it. So therefore, I'm the expert at it. And the second thing is I wanted other doctors to come out, because there's so many great doctors that have done amazing work. Mimi Wang is doing fecal transplant on patients with cancer. People need to know about that, right?
Sure.
Wait 10, 20 years. People with cancer don't have 10 to 20 years. You know,
Right.
Dr. Paul Fierstad at Yale is doing amazing work on C. diff. Sahil Khanna is doing at Mayo Clinic is doing amazing work on chronic urinary tract infections. Colleen Kelly, amazing, the leader of the pack of the fecal transplant doctors, right, at American College of Gastro, has shown that a patient with alopecia areata, 2 patients grew hair. I mean, something did that, right?
Whoa,
So, but
that's
not
amazing.
alopecia areata, not like male pattern baldness. We're talking on
Right.
the autoimmune process where the change in the microbiome changed the immunity to grow hair. So all these doctors, I wanted them to have a platform to speak. And also, you know, there's amazing scientists out there that are doing great work on the microbiome in skin. And so connecting them with my sister, who's a top dermatologist in New York, to make that symbiosis, because I felt that, you know, what am I good at? I'm good at connecting people. I'm the connector.
Sure.
I'm the girl that's like, we'll call. I'm always on my phone. I'm always on Facebook, Twitter, social media. But I'm always connecting people to find the solution. You know, I have a patient that's dying in the intensive care unit right now with COVID. And unfortunately, didn't get to my protocols early enough. But I have a guy that's working on a stem cell product in Beverly Hills. So I called to make the connection to say, maybe that product can help this patient, right? This is what research is all about. This is about the connection, the work, the, you know, figuring it out. So that's what I'm
So, wow, this is amazing, and we have to take a break here, and there's so much more we want to talk about.
And get into the book.
But we want, when we come back, we're going to really shed the light on who. We're going to really, you know, dig into it to find out how to get the balance back. Dr. Sabine will share that with us. But before we go, do you have a copy of your book handy?
To show us.
To show us.
Here it is.
And where it's available at, there we go.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Let's talk shit.
Yes.
Okay.
So
that's great. That's a great name. That's a good book. Okay. I can get into that.
So it's available everywhere on Amazon.
Let's talk.
No. Let's be frank about this. This is really, you know, right.
So stay tuned for part 2 of this video series, and we'll make sure you have a link to both, and make sure you get a copy of this book. It's available everywhere.
On Amazon.
And already criticized it, so it's good.
Okay.
And come to the conference. We're giving away free tickets. And you can hear and ask Dr. Sabine your questions. And now we will do part 2. So go to www.brightsideglobaltrade.org. If you're watching, subscribe, hit the bell button. You know what to do. You guys are better than us. And we'll see you in a bit.